The final warning. The world was holding its breath. Earth had been under attack for weeks, and the situation was growing worse every day. The alien fleet, known as the Rakarans, had already decimated half of Earth's major cities. They had technology far beyond anything humanity had ever seen. The global defense systems were overwhelmed. Nothing seemed to stop them. Every missile, every bomb, every shield that was deployed had failed to make a difference. The Rakarans came in waves, each one more powerful than the last. It was only a matter of time before they reached Earth's last defenses. Governments across the planet had been working together for the first time in history. Every country had joined forces, trying desperately to protect their people. They sent distress signals to the stars, hoping that some advanced civilization would hear their cries and come to help. But no one responded. In the United Nations bunker, Alina Carter sat in front of a massive screen, her eyes glued to the flickering images of the alien ships attacking. She was one of the top scientists working with the world's military leaders to develop new weapons to fight back, but even her brightest ideas felt useless against the Rakarans. They had tried everything. Laser beams, nuclear missiles, advanced defense shields, but nothing had worked. Earth was losing. As Alina watched the screen, the door behind her creaked open. She didn't turn around. She could already tell who it was. It was Commander Malik, the leader of Earth's remaining defense forces. His face was tense, and his eyes were filled with exhaustion. "They've broken through the outer defense rings," he said quietly, leaning against the wall. "We're down to our last shield. If it fails, we have only hours before they hit the core." Alina clenched her fists. "We need more time. If we can just buy a few more hours, maybe we can." Before she could finish, an alert sounded on the screen in front of her. A new message was coming in. A voice that was not human. It was a low, mechanical tone. It seemed like a glitch at first, but then the message played again. This time, it was clearer. "Warning to Earth. You are under threat by the Rakaran Empire." The voice paused for a moment. "Your efforts to resist are futile. But there is still hope." Alina's eyes widened. She was used to hearing military commands, warnings, and calls for help, but this was different. This voice was cold, emotionless, but there was something in it, a hint of urgency, something she had never heard before. "You have been watched. The fleet has been tracked. Your weapons are weak, and your chances are slim. But one last weapon remains. If you unite, you can win. If not, your extinction is certain." The message cut off suddenly. Alina and Malik exchanged a quick glance. Neither of them spoke for a long moment. "Who was that?" Malik whispered. His voice was almost a breath, as if he was afraid the words would disappear into the air. Alina leaned closer to the screen, trying to trace the source of the transmission, but nothing was showing up. The signal was clean, precise, and it seemed to come from a location beyond Earth. She shook her head in disbelief. "I don't know." Commander Malik stood up straight. "Do you think it's a trap?" "It could be," Alina replied. "But it's the first hope we've had. We don't have a choice but to follow it. If the message is right, this last weapon, it could be our only chance." They had no time to waste. Earth's last shield was down to 30%, and the alien fleet was closing in fast. The Rakarans were relentless. There was no room for hesitation. Alina quickly sent out a message to all Earth's leaders, relaying the cryptic warning. The message was urgent, but it would take time to gather a response. In the meantime, they had to prepare for the worst. The Rakarans wouldn't stop until Earth was destroyed. As the minutes passed, the screens in the command center flashed with more incoming signals from the alien fleet. The massive ships were now within range of Earth's atmosphere. The countdown to the final assault had begun. Alina felt a cold sweat on her brow. Time was running out. But then, just as the last minute of hope seemed to slip away, a new message appeared on the screen. This time, it wasn't a warning. It was a command. "Activate the beacon. It is your final chance." Alina's heart skipped a beat. The beacon. She had heard rumors about an ancient signal placed on Earth, a relic from the distant past. But no one knew exactly what it did or where it was. Some believed it was just a myth. But the message was clear. If they could find and activate the beacon, it might give them the chance they needed. Malik looked at her, his expression hardening. Where is it? Alina's mind raced. There had been no official record of such a beacon, but something deep inside her told her that this was no coincidence. I don't know, but we have to find it. Fast. The world's last hope rested on something ancient, something unknown. But one thing was clear. Earth's survival depended on following this final warning. The unseen savior. The world was on the brink. Earth's cities were battered, and the military was stretched to its limits. The Rakarans, with their overwhelming fleet and superior technology, were about to make their final push toward Earth's core. The last hope of survival was the mysterious beacon, but no one had any idea where it was or what it would do once activated. Alina stood at the command center, her mind racing. The cryptic message had given them only a sliver of hope, and that hope was quickly running out. Every second that passed, the Rakarans drew closer, and every minute without the beacon felt like an eternity. It was becoming clear that the beacon wasn't just some relic. It was their only chance of survival. Malik paced back and forth. His face was tense with worry. If we don't find that beacon in the next few hours, it's over, he said. We're running out of time. Alina stared at the screen, which displayed the rapidly advancing alien fleet. The Rakaran ships were monstrous, massive warships that blotted out the sky. They had already destroyed Earth's outer defenses, and their next target was the planet's core, where humanity's last remaining power sources were located. But then, something strange happened. A new signal appeared on Alina's screen. This time, it was not just a message. It was a location, coordinates leading deep into the ocean. But the coordinates weren't from Earth. They were from somewhere outside the planet, far outside. A signal had been sent, and it was coming from below Earth's surface. Where is this coming from? Alina murmured, eyes wide in disbelief. Malik leaned over her shoulder and frowned. It's impossible. That's a signal from beneath the ocean. Alina interrupted, her voice full of uncertainty. But how? There's nothing down there, at least, nothing we know about. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled. It was faint at first, barely noticeable, but then the shaking grew stronger, and the lights in the command center flickered. The tremors were growing in intensity. What's happening? Malik asked, grabbing the edge of a console to steady himself. Earthquake. No, this isn't natural, Alina said, looking around frantically. It's something else, something that's activated. The beacon. Before she could finish, the shaking stopped. The silence that followed was even more unsettling. The air in the room felt heavier, charged with an energy that Alina couldn't explain. A voice came through the speaker system, low and distorted. It was the same voice from the cryptic message. The beacon is awakening. You are running out of time. Alina's heart raced. This was no coincidence. The beacon was real, and it was responding. But what did it mean? Was it going to save them, or was it part of a much bigger plan? We need to get to the coordinates now, Alina said, grabbing her communicator. She quickly sent a message to the global leaders and military officials, instructing them to prepare for a mission to find the beacon. There was no time to waste. The journey begins. The coordinates led them to the depths of the Pacific Ocean. The surface of the water seemed calm, but beneath it, Alina knew there was something waiting, something ancient, powerful, and far beyond human understanding. With the Rakarans getting closer by the hour, there was no time to waste. A special team of soldiers and scientists was assembled. Among them was Captain Malik, who had been with Alina since the start of the invasion. He had seen too much destruction, too many lives lost. But now he had to put everything he had into this mission. They had to reach the beacon. The team boarded a sleek submarine capable of diving to extreme depths. As it descended into the darkness of the ocean, Elena couldn't help but feel the weight of the situation. The alien fleet loomed above them, and down below, something unknown was waiting. "It's too quiet," Malik said, his voice barely above a whisper. He looked out the porthole, watching the deep blue water swallow them. "It doesn't feel right." Elena nodded. "I know, but we don't have a choice. We have to keep going." As they reached the designated coordinates, the submarine sensors started going haywire. The depth was unusual, deeper than anything they had ever charted. The water temperature was plummeting, and strange electromagnetic readings were spiking. Then suddenly, the water cleared, revealing a massive glowing structure beneath them. It was like nothing anyone had ever seen before, ancient and alien, yet perfectly integrated into the ocean floor. There were no signs of any human involvement. It was a beacon, but it was unlike any Earth-made device. Malik's voice trembled. "What is that?" That's our only chance," Elena replied, staring at the massive structure. Her heart raced with a mix of fear and hope. They had found it. But just as they prepared to approach the beacon, a warning flashed across the control panel. "Incoming hostile ships detected." Elena's breath caught in her throat. The Recurrents had found them. Battle in the skies. The Recurrents were closing in. Their fleet, massive and relentless, had already shattered Earth's defenses, and now they were heading toward the final strike. The last hope for humanity rested on the mysterious beacon deep beneath the ocean, and on the team racing to reach it. But as the alien fleet neared Earth's atmosphere, it became clear that the time for waiting was over. The battle for Earth had truly begun. Elena gripped the armrest of her seat in the command center as the tension in the air grew thicker. The submarine that was supposed to be their salvation was now under threat from a looming danger above them. She could hear the steady hum of the machinery around her as soldiers and scientists moved about frantically, coordinating their next steps. The Recurrents' fleet was now within range, and Earth had no time left. "It's here. They're here." Commander Malik's voice crackled over the comms. Elena's heart raced. The beacon was their last hope. But now, it was also the planet's final line of defense. On the surface, fighter jets scrambled to engage the incoming Recurrent forces. Humanity had sent everything it had left: jets, missiles, and every last piece of military technology they could muster. But they were vastly outmatched. The alien ships were too powerful. Their weapons were precise and deadly, each blast erasing entire cities from existence. Elena's mind raced. The beacon had to be activated before the Recurrents could reach the planet's core. The electromagnetic waves from the alien fleet were already interfering with their systems, and the countdown was ticking down faster than anyone had expected. The beacon held the answer, but it needed to be activated in time. "Malik, how much longer until you reach the coordinates?" Elena asked, her voice strained. "Less than 20 minutes. We're almost there, but..." Malik's voice faltered. "Something's wrong. We're being tracked. The Recurrents are already on our tail. They know we're here." "Then activate it now," Elena ordered, her words sharp with desperation. "We can't wait any longer. We need the beacon's power to stop them." The final countdown. Back in space, above Earth's atmosphere, the Recurrent fleet launched its first strike. A massive beam of energy shot down from one of their warships, splitting the sky. The beam cut through the clouds like a knife through butter, sending shockwaves that could be felt even miles away. The Earth trembled, and the ground below cracked as the first of Earth's cities fell. Elena's stomach churned as she watched the destruction unfold, but there was no time to grieve. The battle was far from over, and humanity was fighting with everything it had. Fighter jets streaked through the sky, dodging alien missiles and laser beams, while military commanders directed airstrikes on the alien fleet. Despite their best efforts, the enemy's firepower was overwhelming. A burst of static crackled over the comms, and then Malik's voice came through again, strained and filled with urgency. We're almost at the beacon's location. But the Recurrents are here. Their ships are surrounding us. They're blocking our path. We can't get through. Elena's eyes widened in panic. The beacon was within their grasp, but the alien fleet was closing in, and if they didn't reach it soon, the entire mission would fail. Earth's survival depended on this one move. The alien warships were massive, and the military jets were outgunned and outnumbered. Elena watched helplessly as a group of jets was torn apart by the Recurrent fleet. The odds were slipping away. We can't let them win. Elena muttered to herself. Then an idea sparked. Wait. The strange signal we received, the one that led us to the beacon, it came from the Recurrent fleet too. What if the beacon can disrupt their weapons? She quickly relayed her thoughts to Malik, hoping against hope that she was right. Malik, the beacon might be able to interfere with their systems. You have to get close enough. The closer you are, the stronger the interference might be. There was a long pause. Then Malik's voice came through again, this time softer with a touch of doubt. We're running out of time. The Recurrent ships are locking onto us. We need a distraction. Elena glanced at the monitors, where the alien ships were now surrounding the submarine. She thought fast. There was no time to waste. Send a distress signal to every surviving military unit. We need to create a diversion. Pull as many of the Recurrents away from your location as possible. It's our only shot. The ultimate sacrifice. Malik nodded grimly. Understood. He immediately relayed the order. Fighter jets and ground forces scrambled, sending false signals and creating chaos in the skies. But the Recurrents were too quick, and the distractions barely delayed the alien fleet's advance. The Recurrent ships locked onto the submarine's position, and the sky lit up as weapons charged. As missiles rained down, Elena braced herself. The fight was desperate, and she could only pray that the beacon would work. Her team had no idea what would happen once it was activated. The ancient alien technology was beyond their understanding, and no one knew what it could do to the Recurrents or to Earth. The beacon's power. The countdown to humanity's extinction was almost over. Elena's hands shook as she gripped the controls, her eyes fixed on the screen showing the submarine's descent toward the glowing beacon deep beneath the ocean. The alien fleet was moments away from their final strike on Earth, and the entire planet seemed to be holding its breath. Malik, do you see it? Elena's voice was tight, filled with both hope and fear. Yes, we're almost there. But it's not like we expected, Malik replied, his voice strained. The beacon. It's bigger than we thought, and it's glowing, pulsing with energy. I think it's already activated. Elena stared at the monitor. The once calm ocean floor was now illuminated by the massive, glowing structure. It was ancient, but it pulsed with a strange, unearthly light, like something alive, something far beyond human comprehension. The Recurrent fleet above them was closing in. Their enormous warships were descending into Earth's atmosphere, preparing for the final strike. There was no more time for hesitation. Get closer, Malik. We don't have much time, Elena urged. The submarine's engines hummed louder as Malik pushed the vessel closer toward the source of the mysterious energy. The closer they got to the beacon, the more intense the vibrations became. It felt as though the very ocean was alive, responding to their presence. Then, just as the submarine hovered over the beacon, the world seemed to shudder. The air turned thick with static, and the ocean around them grew unnaturally still. The beacon's pulse increased in intensity, and a loud mechanical hum filled the submarine's control room. What's happening? One of the soldiers shouted, panic creeping into his voice. Elena barely had time to respond when the first Recurrent warship appeared on the horizon, its massive form cutting through the sky like a predator stalking its prey. The countdown had reached its final moments. The alien ship's weapons charge, ready to fire. Activate the beacon, now. Elena shouted, the urgency clear in her voice. Malik hesitated for a split second, then slammed his hand down on the activation button. A blinding light erupted from the beacon, sending out a massive wave of energy in all directions. The submarine rocked violently from the blast, and Alina's heart skipped a beat. For a moment, everything went silent. The energy from the beacon spread outward, touching the alien ships hovering above. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, without warning, the closest Rakaran warship exploded in a burst of blue light. The explosion sent shockwaves through the atmosphere, knocking several other ships off course. The alien fleet, seemingly invincible moments ago, was now in disarray. The beacon's pulse grew stronger, sending out wave after wave of energy that struck the alien ships with precision. It was like a force field, a cosmic weapon beyond human understanding. Each blast from the beacon hit the Rakaran ships with devastating force, disabling their weapons and sending them crashing to the ground. "What is this?" one of the soldiers whispered in awe. Alina watched in disbelief as the alien fleet struggled against the power of the beacon. Ships that had been impervious to Earth's weapons moments before were now crumbling under the intense waves of energy. The Rakaran fleet, once so confident in its superiority, was falling apart. But the battle was far from over. As the alien ships began to break apart, the largest warship, the flagship, remained unscathed. It hovered above, towering over the chaos, as if its commanders were preparing for one final assault. "We're not done yet," Malik muttered, eyes narrowed. "They have a backup plan." Alina nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. The beacon was powerful, yes, but it wasn't enough. The flagship was still a massive threat, and its crew wasn't going to give up without a fight. The team aboard the submarine braced themselves as the sky above them lit up with the last remnants of the Rakaran attack. The flagship charged its energy cannons, preparing to fire a death blow straight into the heart of Earth. "This is it," Alina said, her voice shaking. "We need to disable their flagship, or this is all for nothing." A thought flashed in her mind. The beacon, the energy it released was too much for the Rakaran ships. But what if? What if the beacon could do more? What if it could completely disable the flagship? "Malik, we need to focus the beacon's power directly at the flagship," Alina shouted. "We can't just shoot it in all directions. We need to direct the energy." Malik's eyes widened with realization. "You're right. If we can concentrate it, we can take them down once and for all." The tension in the submarine grew as they worked frantically to adjust the beacon settings. The energy field from the beacon was chaotic, unpredictable, and volatile. But there was a chance. If they could harness the energy and aim it directly at the flagship, they could bring the battle to an end. The Rakaran flagship fired its deadly beam, a concentrated blast of energy that would have wiped out everything in its path. But just before it could reach Earth, Alina and Malik activated the final sequence. The beacon's pulse intensified, surging through the ocean, gathering all its power into one focused beam. A massive, blinding light shot up from the ocean floor, meeting the alien flagship head-on. For a moment, everything went silent. Then the flagship exploded. The blast was so powerful that it sent shockwaves through the atmosphere. The shockwaves spread out, sending smaller Rakaran ships spiraling out of control, their weapons fried by the energy wave. The battlefield above Earth was now silent. The Rakaran fleet was no more. The beacon had done it. Earth had survived. But the victory came at a cost. The beacon's energy had been drained, its glow dimming as it shut down. It had saved Earth, but it was no longer functioning. The aftermath. The silence was deafening. For a moment, Earth seemed frozen in time. The massive explosion that had obliterated the Rakaran flagship was still echoing through the atmosphere, sending ripples of energy across the battlefield. Alina and Malik stared at the empty sky, unable to fully process the reality of what had just happened. The alien fleet, once so powerful and threatening, had been reduced to rubble in a matter of moments. But even as the dust settled and Earth's survivors began to breathe again, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Yes, Earth had won. The invasion had been stopped, but the victory didn't feel complete. It felt like they had only scratched the surface of something far more dangerous. The beacon, now silent and dark, had served its purpose. It had saved Earth from total annihilation. But as Elena stared at the now lifeless machine, she felt an unease creeping up on her. The power that had been released by the beacon wasn't just a weapon. It was something far more complex, something that Earth was ill-prepared to understand. Malik watched as the last of the Rakaran ships fell from the sky, crashing into the ocean. He wiped sweat from his forehead and let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "Did we do it?" he asked, his voice hoarse, as if unsure whether it was real or just a dream. Elena nodded, though the uncertainty lingered in her own mind. "For now, we did." But she trailed off, unable to put her thoughts into words. As the first rays of dawn broke across the horizon, the survivors began to gather. Soldiers, military commanders, scientists, and civilians alike. Everyone who had fought and held on through the chaos of the invasion. But despite the relief that washed over them, there was an underlying tension. The world had been saved, yes, but at what cost? The hidden truth. Hours passed before Elena was able to step away from the control center. She stood outside, watching the horizon, still processing everything that had happened. She had to remind herself that they were safe, at least for now. But her mind kept returning to the same question. What was the beacon? Malik joined her, his expression serious. "I've been going over the data we gathered. The beacon, it wasn't just a weapon. It was a signal. It wasn't created by any civilization we know. It's something older. Older than even the Rakarans." Elena turned to him, alarm bells ringing in her head. "What do you mean, older?" The energy it released, Malik continued. "It's unlike anything we've ever seen. It wasn't just designed to destroy. It had a purpose, a signal, a message maybe." He paused, clearly troubled. What if we haven't just defeated the Rakarans? What if we've just triggered something even bigger? Elena felt a chill run down her spine. Something bigger. "What are you saying?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "The Rakarans were looking for something. We don't know what it was, but whatever it was tied to the beacon. The Rakaran fleet was only the beginning. I think the beacon may have been activated long before the Rakarans arrived. Possibly by someone else, and that signal, it's still out there, waiting." Elena's heart skipped a beat. If what Malik was saying was true, they hadn't won. They had only triggered a chain of events that had yet to unfold. "We need to find out who built that thing," Elena said, her mind racing. And what they wanted with Earth. The Rakarans weren't just invaders. They were searching for something. A new threat. Elsewhere, in the vastness of space, a different kind of activity was unfolding. The beacon's signal had not gone unnoticed. While Earth celebrated its survival, the rest of the universe was taking notice. On the edge of the galaxy, beyond the reach of Earth's limited technology, an ancient race of beings had been watching. These beings had no name, no known history, and no mercy. For millennia, they had waited, hidden from the view of lesser civilizations. And now, the signal from Earth had alerted them to something they had long sought. A fleet of immense ships, their dark forms barely visible against the stars, began to move toward Earth. Their speed was unimaginable, traveling faster than light, their course set with precise calculation. They were coming. Back on Earth, Elena had no idea of the storm that was brewing in the cosmos. She and Malik had returned to the command center, where a new team of scientists was analyzing the data from the beacon. As they worked, the room fell silent. One of the scientists, a young woman named Dr. Sarah Lowell, spoke up, her voice trembling. "Elena, there's something here. It's a message. It's in the data from the beacon, and it's not of this world." "What does it say?" Elena asked, her pulse quickening. It's a warning," Dr. Lowell replied. The message says, "The time of the humans has come, but the Watchers are awake. Prepare yourselves." The Watchers awaken. The room was filled with an eerie silence. Alina stood in front of the massive screen displaying the decoded message, her mind racing. The Watchers. It was a name that sent chills down her spine. What could it mean? Who were these entities, and why had the beacon called their attention? The words on the screen were simple, but the implications were vast. The time of the humans has come, but the Watchers are awake. Prepare yourselves. Alina's breath caught in her throat. She turned to Malik, who stood beside her, his face grim. He had heard the message too, and he knew as well as she did that Earth was not yet safe. "We've just defeated one alien force, and now we're being warned about something else." Malik muttered, his tone dark. "I don't think it's a warning," Alina said, her voice low and strained. "It's a countdown. They're not warning us. They're announcing their arrival." As she spoke, Alina's mind flashed to the destruction caused by the Rakaran fleet. The alien ships, their overwhelming firepower, the way they had obliterated everything in their path. But even as Earth had survived that onslaught, the feeling of dread remained. The Watchers were coming, and they were something entirely different, something more ancient, more powerful than anything Earth had ever faced. A new threat in the cosmos. In the vast expanse of space, the signal from Earth had traveled farther than anyone could have imagined. It had reached the dark, forgotten corners of the universe, where a race older than any known species had been lying in wait. These beings, unseen, unheard, and undisturbed for eons, had watched the rise and fall of countless civilizations. Now, the Watchers were awake. The Watcher fleet moved with purpose, their massive, organic-like ships gliding silently through the cosmos, faster than any human technology could track. They were drawing closer to Earth, their approach swift and inevitable. There was no escape. Earth had caught their attention, and there was no turning back. Within the command center, Alina and Malik were on high alert. The scientists had finished analyzing the message from the beacon. Dr. Lowell stood next to Alina, her face pale as she held up a report. "The Watchers, they're not just coming. They've been watching Earth for centuries. They've known about our existence. The beacon, it was a signal, but it also activated something deep within their realm." Alina's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" "It seems the Watchers have been waiting for a trigger, something to signal the time of the humans. And they've been tracking Earth for a long time. Their ships are heading straight toward us. They'd been dormant for a long time, but now they're coming to make their presence known." Alina's mind was reeling. The Rakarans had been one threat, but this was something else entirely. She glanced at Malik, who looked just as worried as she felt. "Can we stop them?" Alina asked, her voice barely a whisper. "We don't even know what they are," Malik replied, his voice tight. "For all we know, the beacon could have been their signal to begin with. We may have just triggered something we don't understand." A planet on edge. As the news spread across Earth, panic began to rise. The global military forces had only just finished recovering from the battle with the Rakarans. People were still counting the dead, trying to rebuild what had been destroyed. And now a new threat was looming over them. The Watchers, whoever they were on their way, and no one had any idea what they wanted. The skies were still filled with debris from the destroyed alien ships. Earth's atmosphere was dotted with falling wreckage as the remnants of the Rakaran fleet descended, their charred remains floating through space. But the new threat, the Watchers, was the greater concern now. Earth had no defenses against them, no knowledge of their strengths or weaknesses. "We need to prepare," Alina said, her voice steady despite the growing panic in the room. "Malik, I want a full assessment of our remaining military capabilities. We need to be ready for whatever comes next." "We don't have enough," Malik replied, his face grim. "We don't even know if Earth's military forces can put a dent in these Watchers. We need more information. We need to understand what we're up against." As the clock ticked, Earth's leaders scrambled to make decisions. Governments, military officials, and scientists gathered in war rooms around the world, all working to piece together any fragment of knowledge they could find on the Watchers. But no one knew anything. The Watchers had been hidden for so long that no one had even considered the possibility of their existence. Earth's science had never encountered anything like them, and their arrival could very well mean the end of humanity as they knew it. The calm before the storm. Back in the command center, Elena stood by the massive windows, staring out at the city below. The sky was a dull gray, heavy with clouds. The world felt on edge, like a storm was about to break. "Do you think there's any chance we can talk to them?" Elena asked softly, turning to Malik. Malik shook his head, his expression somber. "I doubt it. If they've been watching us all this time, they had plenty of opportunity to communicate if they wanted to. But they didn't. They chose to remain hidden until now." Elena nodded, feeling a deep sense of unease. The Watchers weren't interested in diplomacy. They were coming, and they were coming for a reason. She turned to Dr. Lowell, who had been silent for a while, deep in thought. "Do you have anything else?" Elena asked, hoping for some breakthrough. Dr. Lowell looked up, her face drawn with worry. "There's one thing. A fragment of data from the beacon, an encrypted file. It's strange, but it seems like a warning, or perhaps a key." "What kind of key?" Elena pressed. "I'm not sure yet," Dr. Lowell replied. "But I believe it could be the only way to understand the Watchers, maybe even to stop them." The final stand. The tension was unbearable. In the days that followed the warning from the beacon, Earth had descended into chaos. Global governments scrambled to act, but despite their best efforts, no one had any answers. The Watchers, an ancient force from beyond the stars, were coming, and their approach was imminent. Elena stood at the front of the command center, gazing at the large holographic display of the solar system. The massive ships of the Watcher fleet had entered the outer reaches of Earth's orbit. Their approach was slow, deliberate, calculated. It was as though they were watching, studying, waiting for something. "We need to act now," Elena said, her voice carrying across the room. "They're here, and we don't have much time left." Malik, standing beside her, scanned the screens filled with readings of the approaching ships. His face was pale, his eyes filled with worry. The beacon's power had given them a fleeting hope, but now the reality of the Watchers' arrival had shattered any illusion of safety. "We've gathered every weapon Earth has," Malik said, his voice heavy. "But we don't know if it will be enough. We don't even know what they're capable of." Dr. Lowell, who had been working tirelessly on decrypting the message from the beacon, finally spoke up. "I found something. It's a map, a cosmic map of sorts. It leads to a location in the galaxy, but it's not clear what it is. The key is still incomplete, but there's something here." Elena turned toward Dr. Lowell, a sense of urgency rising in her chest. "What does it mean? What is this map pointing to?" "I don't know," Dr. Lowell admitted, rubbing her eyes in exhaustion. "But I believe it's related to the Watchers, maybe their origin. If we could decipher it fully, we might understand their intentions. But time is running out." Elena clenched her fists. The Watchers had waited for centuries, and now Earth was the focus of their attention. The Watchers' arrival. High above the Earth's atmosphere, the Watcher fleet continued to descend. Their ships were unlike anything Earth had ever seen. They were enormous, organic in nature, shifting in ways that defied human logic. The ships didn't just move. They seemed to pulse with an eerie, otherworldly energy. It was as if they were alive, breathing in the cold void of space. The first sign of the Watcher fleet's power came when one of their ships hovered directly above the largest city on Earth. It was silent, but then, without warning, the city's entire power grid shut down. Lights flickered and went dark as the ship's energy pulse disrupted all electrical systems below. The world watched in horror as entire nations were plunged into darkness. Communications were severed, and chaos spread quickly. People feared the worst. The Watchers had arrived, and they were showing just how much power they commanded. The key. Back in the command center, Elena paced back and forth. The encrypted data from the beacon still hung on the display screen. Dr. Lowell was trying desperately to make sense of it, but there were no easy answers. "We don't have time for this," Elena snapped, her patience wearing thin. "They're here now. They've already shown their power. We need to know what they want." Malik, watching her, stepped forward. "Elena, we need a plan. If this map is the key, we have to figure it out fast. We don't even know if it's leading to something that could help us, or if it's a trap." "I don't care," Elena said, her voice determined. "We can't just sit here and wait to be destroyed. We've got to try." The encrypted message, once again, glowed on the screen, the lines of alien symbols dancing across the display. It was clear to everyone in the room that this was humanity's last chance to understand the Watchers, or even survive their invasion. A glimmer of hope. Suddenly, the display flickered, and a breakthrough occurred. A section of the map came into focus, a distant star system located on the far edge of the galaxy. The coordinates were precise, almost unnervingly so. "That's it," Dr. Lowell breathed, her voice full of awe. "The map. It's pointing to a specific location. It's a star system, but it's not just any system. This place is ancient." "What's there?" Elena asked, her heart pounding. "I don't know," Dr. Lowell replied. "But I think it's where the Watchers originated from. This could be the key to understanding them, maybe even stopping them." Elena's mind raced. The Watchers weren't just invaders. They were an ancient force, connected to something far beyond human comprehension. This star system could hold the answers to everything: their purpose, their weaknesses, and how Earth could survive. "We need to get there," Elena said, her voice filled with resolve. "This is the only chance we have." But the Watcher fleet was already in position, and Earth's military had no means of reaching this distant star system in time. The journey would take years, and humanity didn't have that long. The final decision. As the days passed, the situation grew increasingly dire. Elena's decision became clear. There was no time to wait. They couldn't fight the Watchers with brute force. They needed to understand them, know what made them tick. And the only way to do that was to travel to the distant star system and find the answers they needed. But there was one problem. They didn't have a ship capable of reaching the star system in time. Earth's best technology couldn't even come close to the speed required. "Leave that to me," Malik said, stepping forward with a determined look on his face. "I've been working on something that might just work. It's a prototype we've been developing, and it's not ready for the public, but I think it can make the journey." "Are you sure?" Elena asked, incredulous. "A prototype? This isn't the time to gamble." Malik smiled grimly. "It's our only shot."